It's the Fellowship of the Geek Show, a weekly podcast about comics, the comic book industry, and other geek pop culture. Music courtesy of Manny the Martyr. And now, on with the show!
Hey there, everybody. It's the Fellowship of the Geeks podcast. My name's Thomas Chick, and joining me for this episode is Mike Marlowe.
Hey, gang.
Les Webster. Hello, all. And Liz Newman.
Hello, everybody.
How are you guys doing?
Doing okay.
Yeah.
Learning new
doing.
stuff.
And learning's half the battle.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
G.I.
G.I.
Joe.
Joe. That's not exactly the...
I'm not always a bad
knowing's half the
influence.
battle.
Knowing is half. What?
I said I'm not always a bad influence. I know some
No.
good stuff, too.
Absolutely. Hell yeah.
Uh-huh. Hope everybody out there is doing okay. So what's been going on in your corner of the galaxy?
Oh, man. You may not be ready for this one.
Oh, shit.
But you said last time it's because I don't talk about the shows, so I'm actually going to talk a little bit about the shows. But Jensen Ackles' new series started up on Prime, and they dropped 3 episodes, and I like it. I mean, I may be a little biased, of course, but
No, not you.
I like it. It's not getting the greatest reception, which that's cool. That's going to happen. But it doesn't really matter because he has enough people who are watching it that kind of outweigh the bad reviews that it is getting. And for one thing, people are like, I don't know what's going on. You're 3 episodes in, and you do know what's going on. And they haven't laid it all out because, like I said, I think I think what people expected was like 24, where the whole thing is done and it's only a day that's gone by. This isn't that. It is that kind of show, but it's not. This is like months. It's not just a day. So if they're expecting that, I'm sorry, then yes, it is going to move a little slow for you. you know. Um, but it's a task force that the guy, what is his name? Eric Dane. I watched Eric Dane in Grey's Anatomy. And when Grey's Anatomy was still fresh and kind of new and everything else, the big thing is she had a plane wreck that killed off, like, I want to say it was either 3 or 4 of, like, cast or the fan favorite people, He was one of them. So, it's kinda like, wow, I haven't seen anything I haven't seen him in anything since that, but I found out between that and this, he came out and said that he has ALS. So, I guess,
That's rough.
yeah, he's definitely had his hands full. So it was really nice to see him in this role. It's definitely not Dr. Mark. Totally different.
Dr. Mark. Dr. Mark.
Dr. Howard, Dr. Fine, Dr.
And
Howard.
Dr. Howard.
I think if people are also going into this wanting Jensen to be Dean, he's not Dean. This isn't that kind of guy,
Oh,
which
wow.
is nice.
He's not Dean and you're okay with it?
Yeah. Well, he's Jensen. I mean,
I know, I'm teasing.
yeah. I guess I would be okay with that if that had been where I started with him. But I was back in his soap opera days and his kids TV and that kind of stuff. So I I'm used to seeing things outside of Dean. Now Dean is the biggest character that he's played and that we're used to, but I think even like Soldier Boy, it's nice to see him step out of that and remind people, I'm not a one trick pony, you know. Um,
Right.
it wasn't just my fandom keeping that show alive. It's we can act, we can do things, you know.
Right. No typecasting, please.
Yeah. So that it like I said, it's refreshing to see him, and you can also say that he's enjoying this role. You can tell in the way that he's doing it. So
What is this show called again?
it's called Countdown.
Count. Okay.
It is a Prime exclusive. I think Michael Hatz is the writer and director on this. There are some things I don't like. Now, I mean, like Winchester's, you guys remember I tore that show apart. I mean,
Hmm.
completely, and that was his baby. Um, I think the problems one that they're going to have is, like I said, people are wanting this to move a little further. Um, there is a guy that's going to wind up being the big bad guy. They're setting him up and telling us why he's bad, and they have used a few flashbacks for that. I hope, like I said, we're only 3 episodes in. It was only an episode, so I hope they don't lean too heavily into that because I don't like that. Tell me what's going on. Um, but also, I when the title now this is petty and picky. When the title screen comes up, I don't know what music it is that they're playing, but the way that the font and the color is, it reminds me so much of, Knight Rider. Just that 80s, kinda low budget kinda feel to it. So
Right.
and
That one guy with a synthesizer. Right.
yeah, and every place that they go, there's kind of like a swipe screen of, the name of where they're at. So you may not know what time you're in all the time, but you know where you're So I kind of hope, like I said, right now they're setting this up and why this guy is doing this because it's supposed to be like a 9/11 type event that's going to happen in wherever this is set. I forgot where it's set. And it's his task force that's trying to stop it. So they've got to tell us who this guy is, why he wants to kill people, there's a story there. So I do appreciate that they've not taken up a whole episode to fill us in on all the boring details that they can drag out like that. So, but I do, they need to get rid of the font city, you know, that's just kind of like, come on, you know.
Meanwhile, at the Hall of Justice.
Right? It kind of gives it a corny, like I said,
Right.
almost low budget feel to it. And
Hmm.
with for one, Jensen and Eric Dane being your lead actors, Amazon's paying some money for this. Um, I just yes. They need to show us that budget a little more.
It was an interesting choice they made to do it that way, is what you're saying.
Yeah. And yeah. And I know there's some things that you can't, it is out of your control. It probably was like Amazon, like, ooh, use that swipey font thing. So, but it is kind of
See, you
annoying.
want to believe that, but it could be the showrunner just thought it was cool. He's probably an 80s baby and he thought it was cool.
Yeah.
I mean,
Because
who
when,
knows for
when
real?
Knight
We may
Rider
never
came
know.
up like this, you knew you was getting ready to watch awesomeness.
Right. That shit
Yeah.
was awesome and we want that
And like I
feel.
said, it may not even look remotely like that. It's just as soon as that came up, that was the first, with the music and everything else, it was like this has a Knight Rider feel to it.
Right. It didn't resonate with you the way it probably does with whoever it was that
No.
thought it was cool
Yeah.
and
And,
put it in the show.
I would be the person you would target with a Knight Rider kind of experience. So if I feel that way, the younger crowd are probably like, ooh,
Right. Well, you say that, but man, the
over.
80s is big right now. I'm
Yeah,
just saying
true.
that whole throwback thing is happening,
Yeah.
like it or not.
And that's cool. And I mean, that's really the only thing in this show that has that feel. There's been a couple of explosions that have been right on. The acting, of course, I'm digging. I'm not crazy about the lead lady just yet. Only because she may be a druggie, and you guys know how I am about
Mm,
that. It's
you're
hard for
biased,
me
yes.
to identify and sympathize with that. So
Sure.
I hope I'm wrong. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely a different kind of series for Amazon. It's not The Boys. It's not Supernatural. It's not Supernatural on The Boys. It's definitely a different kind of show. You know. So I'm hoping that even his fans, I know how they can be, this isn't Dean, but give it a chance. You know,
Mhm.
we're only 3 in. I think new episodes every Wednesday. So I think now that we kind of know what's going on, it'll start moving a little quicker now. So, and I also didn't feel lost like with Andor. It's not like that kind of, have slowed it down, but there was some foundation they had to lay, you know.
Sure.
So,
You have to set
but
up the
yeah,
story to tell the story.
yep, definitely. Like I said, worth a shot. I think, like I said, every Wednesday from now until September, and then we have
Yep.
Gen V coming back, which I heard little Birdie said that he might make an appearance. He's not in it, but might make an appearance on that. And then, of course, after Gen V, we have the boys. So the
Ooh.
next couple of months, it's just going to be Jensen, 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 Jensen.
Oh,
Woohoo!
geez. Brace yourselves, fellas.
Uh,
It was a good first episode I saw. I thought it was pretty slick and desirable. I, unlike you, do like the lead uh, female.
yep.
Thought she was pretty solid.
Yeah.
Granted, they're going to twist her story, I'm sure.
Yeah.
That's kind of
I
expected.
You can also tell they're setting her up to be his love interest. And I hate the whole, oh, I hate you. I love you. I hate that. And that seems like where they're going with them too. Like they could have been a little different on that. Why does he
Also a
have
It,
to
very
have a love
80s thing,
interest?
but anyway.
Right. Yeah.
if it, yeah, to me, it could have been that way. Yeah, or they could have done it without the love interest, except
Yeah.
they took Jensen's character and made him such an asshole that that's how they were going to have to go with it.
Yep. He is an asshole. If I was in the dating world, he'd have like all the red flags. But that's the. And then I think he's got, oh, I didn't even say that part. I think he's got a brain tumor and he's dying.
The
So,
character, the character, yeah.
yeah, the character does.
It's not a tumor.
Yeah, I would still be in tears if he did. But yeah, so it's kind of yeah, like I said, 3 in, I think all that will kind of start moving out or settling down. Now, did you get the same kind of vibe I did with the opening shot of where it says countdown like that?
I didn't have a problem with it,
Not a
tell you the
problem
truth.
with it, but did it kind of remind you of Knight Rider?
I
I
would
guess it.
say yes, but I didn't watch Knight Rider, so who gives a shit?
Oh, okay. I grew up on Knight Rider.
And that explains so many things. But anyway.
Yes, yes, it does.
Yeah, I think it'll. I mean, it was on the top 10. I think it was like number 2 on their trending watch list. So, but I have to watch that first one. It's called "We Are Liars," and
Yeah.
I'm not real for sure what it's about, but everybody keeps saying how good it is. So I may have to watch that too.
Wouldn't hurt to watch one episode, right?
Yeah. Well, you know how I am. If I watch one, I'm gonna have to watch all of them.
Well, that at least, yeah. Well,
Yeah,
maybe,
that's why I
maybe.
was with White Lotus. Like, no, I'm gonna wind up watching everything. It was like, man, huh?
Try to get away, but they just keep pulling you back in.
Even when you're sitting there going, "This is bad," you still watch it because I'm a
Hmm.
completist.
Ah, maybe there's medication for that too. Who knows?
Probably. So, did you like it, Wes?
Yeah, yeah, I
Yeah,
thought it was well done.
cool.
To me, the pretty girl was the uh, cryptologist, the one that was on the computer all the time.
It
I
was
thought she
cute.
was very pretty.
Yeah, I like her too. When you can tell she's kind of socially uncomfortable, but she tries, Yeah,
Yeah,
which is cute. Yeah,
yeah, she's trying to adapt to what's around her.
yeah.
I'm glad you got to watch it.
Mhm.
Oh yeah,
No,
like Wild
that's
Horses would be able to drag her away from it. It's got Jensen in it.
right. That's what I
That's true.
told B. I said I can't start seeing spoilers for this. I mean, he did have a shower scene, so it was like, oh man, maybe I needed that
Wow.
spoil.
Wow.
But that's another thing. Since Supernatural, he's been naked quite a bit. I think right out of the gate, with the boys when they found him, he was in that crier bag. So of course he was naked.
Buck naked.
Yep. It's like, man, you can tell he is not working for network TV.
Making up for lost
Uh,
time.
yeah. Yeah, I wish good things. I hope it does really well for him because I liked it. So.
Yeah, I hope it does well myself.
Mhm. It's the only bad thing is it is on Amazon, which means no matter how well it does, it'll be at least 2 years before we know if it's renewed. Probably another 2 years before we get season.
So
Well,
negative.
that's not always true.
Yeah,
Look at Reacher. Reacher was renewed even before first season was done.
yeah,
So I got a feeling this one is probably rated just lower than Reacher. I would say
probably.
Reacher's probably their top moneymaker.
Yep. And Reacher seems what I've seen of it so far seems a little more action packed centered than what this one is. I mean, this one's got action in it too, but not the way Reacher does.
Yeah, we'll just hope that they jump on it like they did with Reacher, though.
Yeah, because a lot of their good ones, I think that's what kills them completely. Rings of Power. Come on. They told us before episode 1, this has been renewed for 7 seasons. You're going to get 7 seasons of this. Now it's been
Yeah.
7 years and we've gotten 2 seasons. I don't know.
Has
It
it
could
been
have
that
been less
long?
than
I was,
that.
I was gonna
Yeah.
say 4 maybe. I
Yeah,
don't know about that.
it could
It's
have been
been a
less.
while, but
But I think you wind up losing those that are interested in it, you know. And some shows, I'm not saying Rings of Power at all, but some shows they kind of have some controversy, and I know that some of them they put it off, kind of hoping that'll die down a little bit.
yeah,
But like I said, maybe you do lose that, but you also lose people like me who I don't want to go back and watch the season again, you know? If I remember I was watching it.
right.
That's very likely.
hmm
Yeah. Fingers
It's
crossed.
it's a risk, but yeah.
Yep. I think his fan base will carry it. Good or bad.
I know
I think they'll
you would
carry
carry
it.
it single-handedly if you could, but
Yep. Like, what was that movie where they broke into all those people's houses after they sent them on cruises to watch that soap opera because the Super Bowl was on the same day? Do y'all remember that? It was an 80s movie.
no, but there were a lot of bad movies in the 80s, so
Yeah.
it could have just snuck past me.
But that was a scam. They had to get them all out of their houses so they could tune it in.
That's funny. Like the network. That's funny.
Yeah.
Alrighty, Mikey.
Oh gosh. Well, I watched a thing. I can't say it was as exciting as what Liz was watching, but um, and actually, I think Les may have mentioned this before. I watched a documentary, and it is called The Ventures: Stars on Guitars.
Yeah.
It is from 2020, and it's about the band The Ventures. Um, and this was a pretty good documentary. This is a band that may actually still be operating. None of the original members are still in it, but um, when this was made, which was really only 5 years ago, the kind of the last surviving member was one of the original leaders, and he had basically kind of commissioned this whole thing where he put a band together and sent them out on the road, and they were still um, doing shows, playing the same music, but it's just different people doing it under the headline, under the banner, which is interesting. You don't really see that a whole lot, but it's interesting. But this was a band that was actually a lot more influential than people kind of realize, because they got started in the 60s, and their first big hit was a cover, but one, that was not as unusual back then, and two, they changed it up basically to make it easier for them to play, um, and kind of sort of made it their own. The song is called Walk Don't Run. um, More than likely you've heard it whether you realize it or not. It's that kind of song. um, and then they proceeded to just keep playing, and they kept releasing. They actually created their own record label, and one of the guys' moms ran the record label. But actually, it turned into like a real record label. It was kind of a crazy story. It's the kind of thing you don't expect to happen. And they just kept cranking out new stuff, new materials. They're an instrumental band, so they don't have a singer. There are two guitars, a bass, and drums. And they just sort of kept releasing music and doing stuff and coming up with new ideas on how to create music and I mean, they put out instructional records teaching people how to play guitar and teaching people, I mean, it's just anything they could think of basically, and it's really wild. I mean, they were putting out, I believe that they said I think it may have been when they were inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. It said they had released 250 albums, and that was in over like a 40-year span. That's a lot of albums.
Mhm.
And it's kind of crazy. And they kept having hits. I mean, one of their other big hits was um, they recorded a single length version of the Hawaii Five-O theme, which was actually how they kind of became known for essentially starting the surf music movement, despite the fact that they were a bunch of guys from Seattle in the 60s and didn't know a surfboard from a hole in the ground. So, like I said, it's kind of an interesting story to hear all of the stuff, all the kind of crazy stuff they've done, and kind of how well they did at it. And they were just four guys from Seattle, just kind of doing their thing, figuring out a way to not have to work for a living, basically. Which, I mean, they end up touring a lot, and so that's hard, but and probably end up working harder in music than they ever would have digging ditches. But and this whole thing was put together by that last surviving one, Don. His daughter put this together. I mean, like directed the documentary and assembled all of this stuff. Found footage, interview footage from several of the band members who weren't still around at the time. Um, got other musicians. I mean, John Fogerty's in this. Um, Billy Bob Thornton is in it. Skunk Baxter is in it. Um, and several other people that you've never heard of it's just interesting that they had this one guy who's a jazz guitarist from Japan. They had him talking because apparently the Ventures in like the 70s got really friggin' big in Japan, which was actually where I think they got the idea to kind of carry on the name with the different musicians, because there were just so many Ventures cover bands in Japan. They were just like, well, hell, why don't we get in on this action now that we're not able to play this stuff anymore?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a really interesting story. Admittedly, the documentary jumps around a bit, but for the most part, it doesn't work real hard at continuity necessarily, but it does sort of break things up into kind of story elements so that it still makes sense. So it's actually still pretty easy to follow, even though it's a little jarring when they jump back 15 years to talk about something else. But then it all flows back forward again, and it's fine. But so it's an interesting documentary, and there's a lot of I learned a lot in this about these guys that I mean, I knew who they were, but I didn't really know that much about them. There's a lot in here. It's really fun. It's on Tubi.
It was a good uh, documentary. I enjoyed that.
Yeah, I thought I remembered you mentioning it. It's been a while, I
Yeah.
think, but I was like, I think Les talked about it once, and maybe that's how it was on my list. Was you mentioned it, and I was like, screw it, I'll put that on my list, and then like a year later, I get back to it finally. I have a thing for music documentaries anyway.
To me, one of the top ones was about the Wrecking Crew.
Oh yeah, that's a good one, because those are
Or,
people you really don't know anything about,
yeah,
because they were in the background the whole time. They were studio musicians. They never got credited for anything.
no,
So yeah, there's a lot of interesting stuff in that one.
I thought about you the other day, Mikey, because I know
Mm-hmm.
your love of documentaries.
Mm-hmm.
I had not heard about this one, but it just came out on HBO and Max just like within the last week or so. It's called My Mom Jane, and it's a documentary on Jane Mansfield. It was directed by Mariska Hargitay,
Oh, wow.
and
Cool.
it's basically her trying to learn more about her mother because uh, you know, she died when Mariska was only 3
Yikes.
due to the auto accident.
Right.
So
Interesting. Would be interesting. It would be interesting to learn more about Jane.
yeah, so
Cool.
all righty, Les.
Thank you. I took in uh, Countdown. I also took in a movie on uh, Prime, a comedy about some improv actors that were sucked into playing playing agents for the feds. It was quite funny, and now I can't remember the name of it. But what was interesting about it was a version of this play in Britain, and it had 2 major stars. One was Dallas Bryce Howard, which I found interesting because she had a pretty good accent for playing a British lead. Um, and I'll just say I recommend it. It was fun to watch. It was easy to follow. So yeah,
Was it called Deep Cover?
thanks you. Thank you. I knew I could find somebody that would look it up. Yeah, Deep Cover was very funny, and it is one that I do recommend because it's not knee slapping funny, but there's enough in it to make you think about slapping your knee. So for me, it was well worth the time. I also was looking up a site called Weird Movies with Mark on Facebook. This is another one of those programs that has coverage of various movies. And I posted one on our channel of his review for the Killer Shrews, and yeah, he does kind of take it apart, and he almost does it scene by scene. So it's to me, it's that much more interesting. So if you get a chance, watch that clip, and hopefully you'll decide to watch his series because he does take shots at various movies. I think he even has the Turkish Star Wars on there.
Oh, wow.
So,
Yeah, as much as Killer Shrews keeps coming up in our conversations, we may have to break down and like watch that on Discord sometime.
Really?
Oh yeah.
Okay, the question is, do we watch the regular version or we watch the Mystery Science Theater version?
I gotta watch the original again.
I think we should
Okay.
watch the original first.
Okay, that's
Yeah,
fine.
we could do the MST version also, but I think I always find that if I've seen the original,
Mm-hmm.
I can appreciate the MST,
Jokes.
yeah, better.
Okay. All right. Yeah, we can do that.
It's a crazy idea, but we're all about the crazy ideas.
No.
Anything else, Les?
No, that's it for me.
Okay,
Thank you.
sure. For me, I've still been kind of going around the world of YouTube. I came across a channel, and let me go ahead and give you the name of it. It's called Tim David Kelly from Kicking Herald. Now, I hadn't seen any of the videos, but I've seen several of the shorts. He is a musician, producer, and rock historian. And his shorts have been, he would just tell these little stories. And these are the type of stories that I really dig. I'll give you a couple examples. There was one of a local flavor, somewhat local. He talked about a young guitarist in Austin was desiring a fatter sound, to produce a fatter sound. So he didn't have the money to buy another guitar. So he took his in and did a swap. He had a Fender Stratocaster and he exchanged it for a Gibson Les Paul. Now, the next day, another young guitarist happens to go into that same store, sees a Stratocaster, and says, I got to buy that. So he did. You may want to take the guesses of the name of these guitarists.
In
To the
Austin?
Eagles.
In Austin. hmm Both
No.
both of them are very well known. Okay, I'll just go ahead and say the one that did the swap for the Les Paul was Christopher Cross, and the one that bought the Fender Stratocaster was
Seals.
what?
Seals.
Seals.
Seals and Croft, you rum-dum.
I didn't say Croft, I say Cross.
Oh,
Christopher Cross. As in sailing,
yeah.
the moon in New York City, all
Yeah,
that, yeah.
Mr. Yacht Rock.
Right. The one that bought the Fender Stratocaster was Stevie Ray Vaughan.
See, I almost said Stevie Ray Vaughan, and I was like,
Doesn't he
I
even have a
couldn't come up with
statue in
another name.
Austin?
He does, yes.
Yes.
Yeah,
I think he's got one in Dallas too.
I know they
I
talked
think
about
you're
it, but
right.
Did they? I don't know if they ever. I know they were talking
I,
about doing one.
I yeah, I knew they talked about it, but I don't remember if it's, but no, they may have. So, another story was, famous singer-songwriter, multi-instrumentalist recruited a famous guitarist to play on one of his songs. In exchange, he would write a song for the guitarist. So they're in the studio recording, and they happen to take a break. The guitarist gets behind the drum kit just to start screwing around, comes up with a beat. Singer-songwriter got behind the keyboards, the next thing you know, they've written a song. the singer says, "Okay, well, you know what? You go ahead and take that. You record that, and go ahead and release it, and then I'll do the same thing. But you can release yours first." Well, it got back to Barry Gordy, and he says, "No, Stevie Wonder, you're going to release Superstition before Jeff Beck does."
That's funny because I
But
just
neither one of
recently
them
heard
saw
that
it coming, huh?
during it. Oh, that's how Jeff Beck was not blind, Liz. Jesus.
I'm thinking Healy.
Wow. Yeah, you probably are.
Yeah.
What were you saying, Mike?
I just recently heard that story somewhere else.
So I've
And
been
I'm sitting, you're telling the story and I'm sitting there going, I've just heard this. Who the hell was it? Yeah.
Yeah, these have been kind of some interesting stories. The one I heard just this morning, at the time, was an unknown group known as Motley Crue, was going to start opening for Iron Maiden, and they're in England. Well, apparently Nikki Sixx has a thing for women with British accents. So the night before they were supposed to meet, before Motley Crue was going to meet Iron Maiden, Nikki Sixx was in his hotel room. Heard a knock on the door. He opens it up. It's a very good-looking woman with the British accent, and she basically says, "Hey, let's get it on." So they do. Next day, the bands meet. Bruce Dickinson walks up to Nikki Sixx and says, "Hey, I'd like to introduce my wife." Guess who the wife is?
Wow.
And now that comes a song that Bruce Dickinson wrote for Nikki. I forget. I don't remember what the name of the song was. But yeah.
That's
Wow.
funny.
Did they cross that bridge? Did he say, nice to meet you? And she went, okay.
It didn't go into that kind of detail, but since Bruce Dickinson wrote a song about Nikki Sixx, I assume he had found out.
Yowie.
Whoop.
Small world.
Mm-hmm.
After all.
Really interesting story, so I definitely recommend checking him out.
Yeah, that's cool.
All right, let's go ahead and take our first break, and we'll get into this week's discussion. Welcome back. This should be a little fun little thing here today. It hit me a couple of months ago during the big blitz for the Thunderbolts movie. I thought, well, it would be kind of cool to come up with a DC Comics version. Now, I know some people would come out and say, well, that's Suicide Squad. Well, it's not exactly the same thing. Suicide Squad is a team. It's a team of villains.
Yep.
That's been put together to do missions for the government. It's essentially like a supervillain version of Dirty Dozen.
Right.
If they screw up or try to escape or anything like that, they're going to get killed.
So they're forced to do it.
Yeah, they're forced to do it.
Whereas Thunderbolts, not so much.
Yeah, Thunderbolts is a group of villains that are posing as heroes for a greater purpose of trying to obtain like intel and all that type of stuff for great for Baron Zemo. The problem was this, but the thing is some of the villains started enjoying being a hero. They realized, hey, this I kind of like doing this. I kind of like being a hero. So I proposed to the gang to come up with their own group of DC Thunderbolts. So that's what we'll be doing today. And what I thought is just, instead of like taking turns and listing a member, let's just go ahead and do the entire team. How's that sound?
Yep. Sounds good.
Okay.
Okay. So who would like to go first?
I'll go first.
Okay.
I went strictly anti-hero because of Suicide Squad. I felt like if it was criminal, they could go do that. So my anti-heroes that I would like to see in a group team, Red Hood. He's got a lot of redemption. And then
A lot of redemption.
yeah, a lot of redemption. Another one who needs a lot of redemption, Killer Frost. Lobo, because you never really know what side he's on. I think he's on his own side.
He's just on the side of chaos, and that's okay, you know.
But most of your groups, you have that big shark or dopey character. That's my shark there. I thought if they get Jason Momoa, he played Aquaman, good enough.
Ouch. Okay.
He's the shark. And then I actually have a team here that I think should get back together because I love the love interests they had. So I have Constantine and Zatanna. I was trying to make Santana work some on this list, but she's always been good. So I put her with Constantine, and he hasn't. So, and then to keep all of my little kitties herded, I have the Spectre popping off the top anti-hero that DC has. I would say the most powerful anti-hero that DC has.
It's an interesting group.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Alrighty. Who'd like to go next? Go ahead. I'm sorry.
How many was that? I'm just curious.
That was 6. Red
Okay.
Hood, Jonah Hex, 7 because Constantine's Zatanna. They're a team though, like the Wonder Twins.
The team. Wow.
Uh-huh.
Ouch. I don't think either one of them would appreciate that reference.
No,
but
they
anyway.
would not want to be brother and sister at all.
No.
They've done
Also, they would not want to be that irrelevant. Yeah, these are the ones that everything happens, which is actually not that far off of their original. But anyway.
Yeah. And I did say Jonah Hex, right? Just to kind of round it out with my sharpshooter.
I don't remember that, but okay.
Yeah.
It's cool. It's a fun addition.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
I was trying to think today, who was Green Arrow's sidekick? The heroin addict that he called Speedy, which I don't know if that was,
He's now he's now back to the codename Arsenal.
Arsenal. Okay.
Is he a good guy or a bad guy?
I don't think
he's a good guy, but
yeah, he kind of like Iron Man. He fell on some really hard times,
Right. I just didn't wasn't sure. I mean, if he's changed his name to something as dramatic as Arsenal, I just wasn't sure if he was still on the happy-go-lucky side or if he was playing for the other team now. Wasn't sure. Not
Revenge
that
mode.
familiar with him.
Yeah.
Right. Revenge mode has different settings, so it's hard to tell which. It's hard to tell how
Right.
far that goes.
Right.
Mhm.
I mean, even Superman has a revenge story somewhere. That's not the same as the Punisher. So
Yeah.
degrees.
Hmm.
Just curious.
Okay. Who'd like to go next?
Well, I'll go next.
Okay.
And I came up with 6 also. Well, I mean, I say also. Liz's 6 has kind of an asterisk by it, but anyway.
Yeah. Technically 6.
6. We'll call it 6-ish.
We're getting one because of the other.
Right. No, and that's fine. It makes for an interesting dynamic, I think.
Mhm.
I didn't do an interesting dynamic. I just sort of came up with 6 villains that I thought it would be interesting to see them try to. And I cheated a little bit because I gave them a leader, and the leader, like, kind of almost the stereotypical. We're not sure if this person is a good guy or a bad guy. I'm putting Catwoman in charge of this group.
Okay.
Don't ask me off the top of my head to come up with a really good reason why story wise, because that's the kind of thing you can go into later.
Catwoman.
You don't have to do that episode. You don't have to do that issue 1. You can do that like issue 14. Like, why the hell are you in charge of this?
No
Oh, well,
flashbacks
it goes
needed.
like this, and then right, three issues of flashback. But so yeah, so I figured group needs I mean, much like Liz, group needs a shark, somebody big and scary. So I chose a character named Brick.
Okay.
Yeah, Brick is a Green Arrow villain, and he's basically that. He's a brick. He's a big fightery type.
Yeah.
Not necessarily a dumb guy, but not necessarily. But that doesn't mean he can't be goofy. You
Right.
can have some fun with him. We also need kind of a smart guy, somebody who has plans and is usually out for revenge. But so I went with a character called the Bookworm.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
He would have been he was created actually for the 66 series, so I figure what the hell. And I mean they then pulled him into the comics, so I thought it'd be fun. Maybe he throws out the usual campy one-liners that you get from the series. So another one that I thought would be interesting. I was just looking through lesser known DC villains, and I stumbled across Gentleman Ghost.
Okay.
I thought he would be a fun addition too. Kind of a gadget guy, if nothing else, and also apparently the whole ghost thing.
Supernatural
Another
element.
one I thought, yes and no. I mean, he at least gives the illusion of it,
Yeah.
which can be
Or if they
useful.
came against it, he'd be handy.
Right. Well, yeah. He would at least have some better idea of how to deal with it than others. So yeah. Another one I thought would be interesting is actually a little more anti-hero-ish. I picked Black Spider.
Okay.
The female.
I wasn't looking at it specifically either way.
Okay.
Black Spider was at one point actually, and what the hell, and then also went up against Batman, which anybody who can walk away with it from that is doing good.
Mhm.
And the most questionable choice on my list is Cersei, because there's not there would have to be an interesting reason to decide to not be a villain.
True.
So I think it would be fun to throw that in to try to find that reason. I mean, what is she trying to prove here?
Right. Cool.
That's my
Yeah.
6.
There you
Yeah,
go.
I like it.
Yeah.
I was a
I
little
do
afraid
too.
I was misunderstanding the assignment for a little while there, but turns out no. I think I got it.
Well, I mean, I didn't really set any hard rules or anything. I just said, hey, do this. So,
Right. Which makes it easy to both
mhm.
understand and misunderstand the assignment, but
Mhm.
it's fun. I'm enjoying this.
Alrighty. Hey, Les, why don't you go next?
Okay. Well, you're talking marksman. I went with Deathstroke.
Yep.
I also went with Captain Atom, who was a villain early. I went with Cassandra Case, who was the antithesis of Batgirl for a while. There was a version of Hawkman that was an evil person,
Interesting.
and this is prior to the Silver Age Batman or Hawkman. A couple of others I had were the Crimson Avenger and I'm just going to go with you can go with Poison Ivy or Blockbuster, but one that I thought was interesting was Dr. Light because
Okay.
the new version was considered a hero.
Right. Yeah, the female version was actually part of the Justice League International.
Yeah, that was right after the New 52, right?
Something like that, yeah.
Prior.
Or was it right? Okay.
I think so.
I remember her from New 52. I just don't know how.
Yeah.
I don't know where, and I didn't have much context before or after that, so wasn't sure which.
Okay.
Interesting. Some fun stuff in there.
Yep.
It is.
I guess it's my turn. So,
Take it away.
when I started, when I came up with this idea, I started kind of doing a little research, and I went with looking for anti-villains. Well, the first thing I did was I wrote down a list of names that I knew at one time or another actually worked with the good guys. And after writing down about 6 or 7 names, I was like, I see a certain theme here. They're all bat villains.
Oh, okay.
And I'm like, there's got to be others. So, I did a little bit more thinking, then I did some research. So here is my list. First off, Poison Ivy. So Les and I kind of agree there.
Mm-hmm.
Second, I have Pied Piper. He's been on the side of good for several years now.
Yeah.
Next is going to be my leader of the group, the Riddler. Because they've been playing around with him possibly being on the side of good. Next is Captain Cold.
Yeah.
'Cause at one time he was part of the Justice League. Next on my list is Star Sapphire,
Mm-hmm.
who's part of one incarnation right now of the Justice League. Next I have Cheetah. They're playing around with that a little bit. I like that idea. I like the character. And to wrap it up, so I actually have 7, where everybody else has 6, and that's fine. I didn't put a limit of members, so that's fine. I remember when the Rebirth started up, and I was reading Detective Comics, and I didn't understand why Clayface was in there.
Yeah.
But after reading those stories, I liked the idea. It was kind of cool. And I was kind of pissed off when they turned around and made him a bad guy again. So I've got Basil Carlo as my 7th member of the group.
Okay.
Pretty cool.
Cool. Aren't they working on something with him?
They're doing a Clayface movie, yeah.
Cool. Be interesting to see where they take that.
Well, and they're promising that it's going to be a rated R movie.
Ooh.
So I guess they're going to do a little bit more of a horror style, I guess. I don't know.
Now, I have not seen the Penguin television program, so I don't know if he's supposedly good or not. I know he wasn't.
I had neither, but I don't know, so I can't say anything.
I don't know yet either.
But isn't that interesting how so many Bat villains have played around with that? You know, hey, it's in my best interest to help the good guys here, so I'm going to do that. And then maybe not so much next time. It's funny how many of those characters have done that.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you're basing all of this on Batman, and Batman's been dancing on both sides of the law basically for. So it's
Well,
easier to blur that line
yeah, I guess.
when you're dealing with him. It also makes for a fun contrast because it lets Batman. It gives him a better reason to cross that blurry line from time to time. I'm not saying they've always done it that way, but for my money, that would be a great excuse if he's doing something and he's recruited Clayface to help him. Well, if he's got Clayface basically fronting whatever it is he's doing, that's a big shadow to work in. Batman in the shadows is a dangerous thing. Batman in the shadows can get away with a lot of stuff. I mean, hell, you get him. I mean, breaking and entering is one of the things he does. That's a standard tactic for Batman.
Right.
And that's illegal. So he can get away with more stuff, especially if he's got somebody running interference for him.
Yeah, that's true.
I am probably way overthinking it, but there's a lot of fun possibilities there, writing wise.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Cool. Some very interesting groups there.
That was.
There's so many in the DC universe of villains becoming heroes or the adverse. Can we say that much against or about Marvel? That many people, villains in Marvel that have switched sides? Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't think of many villains becoming heroes. There's right off the top of my head. I would actually have to sit down and think about it. The reverse has been true, unfortunately. Heroes becoming villains.
Hmm.
So I don't know. I may have that's a good question. I may have to do a little research and get back with you on that.
The only one I can think of offhand is Doctor Doom.
Of a villain becoming a hero?
Yeah.
Well, Magneto's played that order several times.
True.
I mean, at one point he was leading the New Mutants. Was their teacher leader? So that's one I come up right off the bat. So I don't know. I'll have to look in. I'll look into that and try to come up with a list.
How about in DC, magic people or dead people? Things like that too. It's kind of interesting what way you can go. Because personally, I was going to do all dead or uh, ghost people. Dead Man, uh, the Ghost Squad, uh, Dr. Fate, Spectre, Zatanna, things like that. I mean, there are so many that you can pull from.
It would be interesting to put together some other themes, build teams around a different theme like that. I like that.
Hmm. That would be pretty cool.
And we can do that. We come up with some kind of theme. We can do that for another show. I'm open to it.
Good. Yep.
So, all right. On that note, let's go ahead and take our second break, and we'll be back with Geek News for you. And we're back, and it's time for Geek News for you. In this segment, we bring a couple news items to the table for discussion. And for this week, it is Les and myself. And Les, would you go first, please?
Sure. I'm going to let everyone know that the local comic shop day is back. It will be coming to you in September, and in this, they are going to do like free comic book day again. In this, they have listings of Marvel and DC. Of course, they don't show you covers for either one of those, but they do show you covers for Oni Press uh, and some others. Now, if upon looking at this, there are a couple of titles that I do want. One is AXA, which is an ongoing series. The other looks to be a limited series, Flesh-Eating Cheerleaders from Outer Space. I thought was a title I'd like to try. There's also a book called Jessamy from AMP. They've got a Star Trek book out. They do have Hero Bear and the Kid, which is one that I got to have. That was such a good series to read. So this to me is going to be amazing. It's a comic book look at like what was the boy and his cat or his tiger?
Calvin and
Comics.
Hobbes.
That's it. Yeah, this is like Calvin and Hobbes.
Cool.
So I recommend these. I want to find them. So
Pretty
hopefully
cool.
this and the opportunities for teas and bags, things like that. Yeah, I want this stuff for big time. Kind of what I've taken from it.
Cool.
Interesting. I wasn't sure if they were going to do something like this again since we kind of lost the whole unified distribution system
Yeah, that's
as
true.
it once was. But I'm
Yeah.
glad they're getting it together and pulling this together like this. Great.
Yeah. Yep. All righty. I came across an article regarding a book that I think it just came out, or it hadn't been out too long. It was a book I was kind of interested in. It's called Star Wars: The Acolyte, the Visual Guide, and I love these visual guide stuff. But the website, the Hollow Files, put out an article, 11 things we learned from the Acolyte Visual Guide. I'm only going to mention one of these because it was one of these I went, ooh, okay. And maybe I'm one of the few that never even thought about this as being a possibility. But it says in the text that before the dawn of the Republic, the Sith ruled the galaxy.
Okay.
And they posted a quotation from the guide. It says, "After the defeat of Sith conquerors, the Republic emerges from the ashes of galactic conflict to reach an unprecedented heights in the long stretch of peace that follows."
Hmm.
Interesting.
The beginnings of the Republic.
Mhm.
Cool.
So
Yeah.
under the Sith, who were just rampaging through the group,
Mhm.
and those that were taken by the Sith were unorganized, and it took a large group to overcome this Sith. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. I mean,
it's
between
Right.
an early
between
rebellion.
yeah.
Right. I picture kind of a handful of like Sith warlords. Not like anything unified, but probably a lot of infighting and stuff. And
Definitely infighting for more power.
right. And so all you have to do is get it like Les says, a sizable um, organized resistance together.
Yeah.
Could be fun. I mean, it's not like the story is totally unfamiliar, but doesn't mean, I mean, you got different bad guys, and so it becomes a different thing.
Could be interesting. That could be interesting territory to cover.
Yeah,
Could be
absolutely.
fun.
Further back into the past is interesting too, but whatever.
Well, yeah, yeah, because I mean, we kind of covered a certain section of this timeline pretty well.
Hmm.
So it'd be nice to kind of move off. So,
Sure, yeah,
Yeah.
agreed.
so, alrighty. any special shout-outs or mentions this week?
I believe our schedule tells us that we are taking next week off.
Yep, I was gonna mention that. I meant to mention that earlier in the show, but yeah, it's a
So,
scheduled week off. Yep,
yep,
next week.
No new episode next week. We will be back chomping at the bit in 2 weeks.
And this will be coming out the weekend of June 4th. So happy Independence Day to America.
July 4th.
Yes.
Yep, July 4th. What did I say?
You said June.
I'm tired.
Sorry. You named one of the kettle kids. So.
I was literally close. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So happy Independence Day to those who celebrate.
Yep.
Happy first weekend of July for those who don't.
Yep.
Belated happy Canada Day for those who celebrate that.
That was today. Thank you.
It was.
Well, and happy halfway through the year day too.
Well, sure.
We'll be halfway through the year by the time this drops.
Yeah.
Which is wild. Or is it wild? I don't know.
And happy is about to get bloody hot and stay that way to those of us who live in Texas. But you know. We're just happy people around here. I'm just saying.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you say that. I hadn't watched the forecast for a couple of days, but I think it was back on Sunday. I saw the following Wednesday we're gonna actually they're already projecting 100.
Uh-huh.
So
yeah, we're at that time of year in this part of the country. How you want to look at it, where you pretty much don't need to watch the weather anymore for a few months because it's not going to change.
Yeah, it's going to be upper 90s, maybe 100. Yep.
Mm-hmm. And occasionally it'll even get hot. But yeah.
Well, I tell you what, I don't know about you guys, but I got a pop-up shower over here this evening.
This evening? Wow. No, we saw nothing.
I mean, we even had thunder.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had
thunder.
thunder.
It talked more than it barked.
No, I actually saw rainfall. I mean, everything got wet, so I don't know how much. Probably not a hell of a lot, but still.
Not much, I'm sure. Yeah.
Right.
But still, hey, take what you can.
At this time of year, that's right. Won't get any better until September, late September, maybe.
Right.
So, all right. Well, we'll move on to our regular shout-outs. I'd like to thank Pop Goes the Culture for allowing us to be part of a great little podcast network. We recommend you check them out. There will be a link in our show notes. I also want you to check out the fine men and women who spread the word of the fellowship on Twitter by retweeting our links. They're better known as Podern Family. And the best way to do that is just do a search, #PodernFamily, and just check those guys out. We appreciate their support as always. I want to thank Manny the Martyr for supplying music to the podcast. In our show notes, there will be a link where you can check out some of their other music. And you, dear listener, thank you for downloading and listening to today's episode. We value your feedback. You can email us at email@thefellowshipofthegeeks.net, or you can go to the website, go to the About Us page, and there is a contact form that you can fill out there. As been mentioned earlier in the show, we do have a Discord that's free to come join us. We do have an open invite on our homepage. Discord's free to sign up, and the apps are free. Social media, we're on Facebook, The Fellowship of the Geeks. On Instagram, Twitter, and Bluesky, we're at Fellowship Geeks. If you'd like to follow our personal Twitter accounts, Mike can be found at Mikey Geek. Liz can be found at LN_geek. Les may or may not be found at Fake Les Webster. And I could be found at TomTCGeek. And from wherever you download or listen to our podcast, if you'd be so kind enough to rate and review the show, it would be greatly appreciated. Anything else before we say goodbye?
Just thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Appreciate you listening.
And we'll see you in a couple weeks. Thank you for listening, everybody. We appreciate the support as always. And until next time, geek on, my friends.
We thank you for listening to the show. Comments, suggestions, and questions can be sent to email@thefellowshipofthegeeks.net. You can follow us on Facebook at The Fellowship of the Geeks and on Twitter at Fellowship Geeks. Until next time,